This video is sponsored by Premium Sound, one of the UK's premier dealers located in Kensington, London, with an online store carrying a comprehensive inventory to cater for a variety of needs. For more details, click the link in the description. I'm guessing that Radiant Acoustics is a brand that most of you won't have heard of, but the key people responsible for it have been in the industry for years. At the heart of it all is Peter Lindorff. Yeah, that's right, the guy who founded Dali Speakers, Lindorff Audio and co-founded Purifi, along with Bruno Putzis and Lars Risbo. So what's the big deal? Well, Purifi are at the forefront of producing Class D amplification. Their Eigentakt modules are found in top-end offerings from NAD and some other brands, but they make premium speaker drivers as well. The Purifi U8080 transducer has been awarded several patents. It's not just the peculiar looking woofer surround. There are 30 significant changes over conventional drivers, according to Purifi. I ain't going to get too geeky here for the moment. I'll get into the ribs of that later. But the takeaway is that this Purifi technology allows designers to produce smaller speakers with clean, deep bass extension. They're expensive drivers which have found their way into some high-end designs. Radiant Acoustics was born out of the realization that within Peter Lindorff's portfolio of companies there was all the expertise to produce a pure interpretation of a Purifi-based speaker at a more competitive price. Plenty of pedigree and technical innovation here. I had to review these. Radiant Acoustics is essentially the collaboration between Peter Lindorff's Purifi technology company, Nordic Hi-Fi, who developed the project, and Hi-Fi Klubben, who are the logistics and retail arm. The Clarity 4.2 speakers retail for €2,598 a pair and are available in three finishes: matte black, matte white and a realwood walnut veneer. Here you see the larger Clarity 6.2 model that retails for €3,998 a pair. It's the only picture I could find with all three finishes together. The 4.2s measure 164 by 260 by 194 millimeters, or 6.5 by 10.2 by 7.6 inches. For a mini monitor, they're surprisingly heavy at 5.6 kilograms, 12.3 pounds. Your first clue that there's more to these speakers than meets the eye. A 12mm thick aluminium plate forms the front baffle. It's CNC machined from one block to ensure vibrations are kept to a minimum. Certainly more substantial and expensive than the MDF fascias you normally find at this price. Sister company Dali have developed a custom air motion transformer. The unusually large AMT tweeter features a symmetrical dual magnet configuration rather than the more common single magnet designs found on many AMTs. A Purifi PTT 4.0 XO4 NLC02 driver produces bass as low as 40 Hz at -3 dB. That's right, a 10cm 4-inch woofer reaching just above the bottom octave. So let's delve a little deeper into why that's possible. It's a long excursion driver that maintains low harmonic and intermodulation distortion. The peaks and troughs on the surround, looking like a model of a mountain range, results in minimal deviation of the radiating area with cone displacement. Also, the strength of the magnetic field across the voice coil and its inductance doesn't change significantly with the position of the driver. A tricky thing to do with a long throw transducer, but this ensures consistent driver behavior. Bass extension is assisted by identical size Purifi U8080 passive radiators mounted to each side. This allows the cabinet to be smaller than the conventional ported design and solves the issue of port chuffing noises, but it's a more expensive solution. The crossover is at 2300 Hz and uses air core inductors with thick gauge wires to keep DC resistance low. There are also Benick polypropylene capacitors and some low inductance resistors. The cabinet is damped by Basotect, an open cell foam specific for these applications, designed to reduce internal resonances, although this is a cut through of the 6.2 as the 4.2 was not available, but it's similar, you get the idea. Finally, let me just quickly show you the rear. There are two gold-plated speaker binding posts. They won't accept spade connectors, just banana plugs. However, they are flush mounted to help with close to wall placement. What Radiant Acoustics have done with the Clarity 4.2s is develop a speaker that has a ridiculous bass extension for its size. Some manufacturers play the trick of bumping up the mid bass somewhere between 60 and 100 Hz to give the illusion that a compact speaker is a bass monster. Not these. This is actually deep, clean, linear bass extending to a point where no mini monitor has the right to go. They actually dig deeper than all the stand mount speakers I have in my house at the moment, bar the transmission line design. In my room, which has a circa 15 meter square footprint, it'd make you wonder where I've hidden the subwoofer. However, the Clarity 4.2s have a lot more to offer than a cheap party trick. The background from where information emerges is uber quiet. It results in a soundstage that is wonderfully wide, dramatically deep, with intricate imaging. In these aspects of performance, the Radiant Acoustics Clarity 4.2s are a match for the very finest speakers I've reviewed on this channel, including the £5,000 Alta audio Alyssas that I'm currently using as a top reference. The high frequencies are also on a par with the Foundtech Ribbon tweeter deployed in these speakers from New York. These Danish mini monitors aren't going to compete with the Alyssas for scale, dynamics and mid-range resolution, but for half the price, and given the huge disparity in size, I'm impressed. So let's compare them to something with similar proportions. My £1,500 Dali Minio SEs have a subtlety to the mid-range presentation and a beautifully natural tone that the Clarity 4.2s can't quite match. However, the Minuet SEs only extend down to 59 Hz, not 40. The little Dali speakers are giving up quite a bit of bass extension to their Radiant Acoustics cousins. The Clarity 4.2s also separate out performers much better, as if they were bigger speakers. But there's a touch of thickness to the lower mid-range and a hint of reticence to the upper mid-range. It gives the Radiant Acoustic Clarity 4.2s their fundamental tonal character, which is warm and slightly laid back. It's a personality shared by the Buchardt E50s that retail for circa €4,000. They're also sold direct. The E50s feature a Purifi Ushindi 165mm 6.5-inch midwoofer and a custom ScanSpeak D2905 soft dome tweeter with two SB Acoustics passive radiators at the back. Comparisons between the Buchardt and Radiant Acoustic speakers are inevitable. They come from the same country and there are so many similarities to the design approach, although the Clarity 6.2s are a more natural competitor in terms of price and size. I can confirm that the Clarity 4.2s aren't quite as cozy sounding as the E50s, varying closer towards an even tonal balance. Yet again, the smaller cone surface area and cabinet volume in comparison to the Buchardt speakers matters. There's only 4 Hz difference in bass extension between the two, but the E50s have the ability to shift between quiet and loud passages with less effort. Here's an illustration. To the right of the 4.2s are my £1,800 quad Revela 1s. They must be 3 times the cabinet volume. The Revela 1s have a stated -3 dB low frequency extension point of 54 Hz, as opposed to 40 Hz on the Clarity 4.2s. It's genuine. The smaller Radiant Acoustic speakers really do produce the deeper bass. They do it by trading sensitivity, but that's a separate matter. My point is the larger quad speakers are still dynamically superior. The Revela 1s have a more forward mid-range, giving vocals and lead instruments greater presence. They're the best all-round performing speakers I've heard for the money, but even the Revela 1s can't match the Clarity 4.2s for instrument separation and precise imaging. That brings me to this week's music suggestion. I'm not a typical classical music fan. Usually sonatas are more my speed than symphonies, but I do love a movie soundtrack. The Clarity 4.2s show glorious separation between percussive, woodwind and string elements when playing Hans Zimmer's score to Interstellar. I know it's an obvious choice, but it sounds great, although some dynamic compression is evident from the Radiant Acoustic mini monitors during loud crescendos. Back to the review, and I've got a couple more comparisons for you. Dusting off my old Product Response 1 SCs, highlights that they aren't quite as accomplished at delineating performers in space and time as the Radiant Acoustic speakers either. Soundstage imaging, that's what the 1SCs excel at, but the Clarity 4.2s do it just a little bit better. They also produce a deeper bass and slightly more airy highs. What my vintage PUREST speakers do better is deliver a mid-range with better transient attack and also more nuanced and natural timbre. There's still life in the old girls yet. The Radiant Acoustics mini monitors remind me in many ways of the neat petite classics that retail for £1,995 a pair. The British speakers also have magnificent bass weight for their size, wonderfully expressive highs and the ability to disappear in a beautifully immersive and layered soundstage. The main differences are that the Clarity 4.2s produce deeper bass and have a relaxed mid-range tone, whereas the Neats are a touch on the bright side. Yeah, these Radiant Acoustic speakers hold up well to my old ProAx and the Neats, which is very high praise in my book. So what do you need to know to get the best out of them? I suspect that an 81 dB sensitivity, which is actually a 78 dB sensitivity into an Atoll load, will scare a lot of people off. It shouldn't. Sensitivity is only indication of how loud a speaker will play with a given wattage input. Impedance swings are a lot more demanding on an amplifier's power supply, and the Radiant Acoustic Clarity 4.2s don't have any. They're nominally rated at 4 ohms, dipping down to a 3.6 ohm minimum. My £1,950 exposure 2510 with 75 watts per channel available into 8 ohms drives them admirably, despite having a modest size power supply. The low sensitivity of the speakers just means that I have to turn the volume dial a little higher to get the same listening level. Switching to my £3,250 Hegel H190 shows that the Clarity 4.2s appreciate the extra power and current capability though. Instrument separation and bass control improves noticeably. Reverting back to exposure and my vintage 21 pre and 18 super monoblocks confirms that the Radiant Acoustic speakers scale up well, the soundstage opens up even further and there's greater overall fidelity. Whilst the excellent Volumio Revo streaming transport fed by the Lineo 5 power supply connected to my Denafrips Pontus 15th DAC is an ideal combination to take care of music source duties. That's a circa £3,500 combination, and I wouldn't want to go much below that to hear the Clarity 4.2s at their best. Certainly budget at least a couple of £1,000 for front-end components. Positioning wise, they wound up with a very conventional position in my room, with the speakers pointing at my shoulders as far as the toe-in angle, and with ribbon tweeters or AMTs it's even more important to have the tweeters pointing at ear height. I wouldn't suggest these Radiant Acoustic mini monitors for people who regularly listen above 85 decibels. Dynamic compression will become a factor, however they do play superbly well at low volumes. I didn't try them in a near-field setup, but the fact that these speakers deliver a wide sweet spot and have the drivers fairly close together would suggest that they would work quite well at the end of the desk. Just use proper isolation to deal with the bass. Okay, time to wrap things up. Peter Lindorf and his team set out to deliver the most authentic interpretation of a Purifi speaker to date. That's not just hot air, there's genuine technical merit to the design, and selling direct keeps the cost down. The result are speakers that have stupendous bass extension for their size. They also have exemplary high frequency performance, helping to produce a massive soundstage with some of the best stereo imagery I've heard. The very low sensitivity and flat impedance curve means that wattage is more of a consideration than current for a change. Stick with amplifiers that have a rating at 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms as a minimum, even if they have modest power supplies. Most people are going to be fine. The Clarity 4.2s won't play ridiculously loud, but the SPL capabilities will be ample for all bar headbangers. Ideally, I'd like a little less lower mid-range saturation and a touch more presence in the upper mid-range for a more natural timbral reproduction. But I'm being very picky. By any account, these are very revealing speakers. The Clarity 4.2s are ideal in small to medium-sized rooms for those looking for a high-performance speaker, diminutive in size but not sonic nature. If that's you, then stick these on the top of your audition list. The Radiant Acoustic Clarity 4.2s get a very, very highly recommended from this channel. My question for today is, if you could design your own speaker, what features would it have? You don't have to get too technical if you don't want. It can be anything. Please let me know in the comments section. I'm sure you know what to do by now if you want to support me here and what I do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Check me out on Patreon. There's a couple of tiers you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. Also check out the ABA Club on Patreon, which has some great ways to interact with me and fellow Patreons. But for today, for now, a British audiophile signing off.